Good morning, everyone. It's great to see all leaders from the finance fraternity here and coming for this purpose of understanding how data is contributing to the betterment of the finance function, but also helping CFOs in managing the organization more effectively. And if you would notice my word here, I'm saying that CFOs in managing the organization more effectively because their role itself has gone beyond just the finance function to undertake transformative initiatives across the organization, across the board, whether it comes to employees, whether it comes to even marketing, even it comes to processes. CFOs are there hand in hand, working hand in hand with the CEOs in taking it forward. And it's all about a recipe of the success of CFOs and data being probably the most important ingredient here. Our survey also, which Avinash also just spoke about, is that CFOs are investing a lot in measuring financial performance. I think it is giving them, it's about 36% are investing in using digital transformation for better financial performance. That's helping them manage their work better. They're focusing a lot on automation as well. And these are the two key areas which we feel will define the next trajectory of a CFO's role. And Tanushree, you are on my left, and if I can start with you here, is how have, with your experience, how have you implemented data analytics and digital transformation in your organization?
Thank you, Vipul. Good morning, everybody. I think the journey to data analytics actually starts at the point where we have to ensure that there is a common source for all the data that we are using. And I think one of the very key important aspects is, especially in companies where we have multiple subsidiaries or multiple companies, there could be different systems, starting with the financial data itself, that are using different systems to store that financial data, right? I've worked in organizations where we've used Oracle as an ERP and then Dynamics as an ERP or SAP as an ERP along with Tally. And so when you're starting on a digital transformation journey, it's very important that you understand what are the different elements where data rests, just the financial data itself. And then one sort of comes into saying, this is a financial data, but then you also have HRMS, CRM softwares, product lifecycle management tools. And what is the way that you can extract that data to meaningfully then interact with the data that's resting on ERP? So the first step in digital transformation, Vipul, is understanding the landscape which is there, and then bringing all the data on that landscape into a format which is cohesive and can then be used for data analytics. Because without that, we can do multiple analytics, but again, if the source of the truth is not one, you are then then you're seeing different data points, right? And I think while we are doing all of this, it's also very essential to then focus on the fact that the data which is there, okay, is clean. And I think going back to that, the discipline of cleaning master data on an annual basis, doing it any more frequently is an overkill in my view. But then cleaning of the master data, customer, vendor, item, all of that becomes very essential, because if these masters are not clean, then you can map your journey, you can bring in all the data, but then it's garbage in, garbage out.
Definitely, you mentioned about the data quality, and in fact, before this session, before we were here in the other room, we were discussing, Yashpal, Rakesh, we were discussing about how data quality itself is so important for us. We had a laugh about it, but I think there was enough pain in our laughter. Because what you have experienced also is how it really can impact the success of any project.
Yeah, good morning to all, and thank you, Vipul, for raising this question. Like, whenever we start for any digital transformation or automation, as Tanushree has said, the quality of data remains important, because that becomes a very focal point on which your future decisions will be based. So if we are pondering something which is not even correct, which is not even legible, our all entire future decision making would be going to be suffered heavily. Yeah. So while building up a data, it's very important that we build up a data which data is usable, and the requirement of usability depends from organization to organization. One common principle cannot be, I would say, copy pasted to each and every organization. So first, all the organizations, the leaders must think what type of automation it is required, what type of digitization is pertinent to the organization. Basis that, the validation levels, while we are going for a digital transformation, there has to be, I would say, a multifunctional team sitting, specialized person sitting, so that there are validation tools. We reduce the chances of ugly data, I would say, or I would say non-cleans up data. The chances are reduced. And cleansing a data is a regular exercise, I would say. Like we can have annually also, depending on the customer or the database. It can be quarterly also, monthly also, it's depending. So, but quality of data remains to be a very important thing. In today's era, if we are going for a AI automation, large decisions are based on the data. If the data itself is incorrect or it's not up to the mark, all the results are going to be distorted. So the very purpose of investing heavily, very purpose of investing like financially or the investing time, resources, it's all going to be futile. So one has to be very, very clear and pertinent that what type of data, the quality of data we are carrying in the organization. And I would say it cannot be a hit and trial case that we have put up some n number of persons to take care of the same. It becomes very collective effort from all parts of the organization. Traditionally, it has been a finance side because finance CFOs are required to be legally present the financial statements to the board, and all those stuff used to be there. So they were the persons who were driving these tools because anyhow they have to make the balance sheet, get it audited, and it has to be a clean audit. There should not be any qualification. It is also, so that was their baby, but now it's not, I would say, limited to them also. Even in the manufacturing processes that we are noticing in our organization, we can harness the maintenance time, the downtime of the machines also is captured properly, and it is inbuilt and embedded with the main Oracle system that we are using. So it gives a real-time picture even to the production team also, what is the downtime, what is the upskill time, and how the operations are going. Can we reduce some, can we gain some operational efficiency? But that is possible when the correct information is flowing to the system. If something is flowing which is distorted, it becomes a bigger challenge for the organization.
Yes, that would be garbage in and garbage out, certainly. And Om Prakash, you also were giving your inputs there on this topic, and yours is also a manufacturing setup.
Yes, yes.
How have you seen data quality affecting the digital transformation you are undertaking?
It's very important, as I was mentioning in the morning also. We, couple of years back, we implemented ERP SAP HANA, and
Om Prakash.
the experience was very good. Everything went well. On the first day of implementation, we were able to raise all the invoices. Everyone was very happy. And once we closed the month, and once the financial came, it was all messed up. And it was because of one mistake by one gentleman who was entering in the purchase process. Simple mistake that instead of putting the rate in terms of ton, he put the rate in terms of kg. So you can understand, and then there is an automated process. It goes to the item cost, goes to the production cost, goes to the COGS, and then everything is manipulated. And then it's not so easy to reverse all these because it's a online processes. So it gets everything. So the point is that in any implementation, any kind of implementation, the data validations rules. Most of the things now is through system now. We don't have to take much, because if the system provides, we have to be mindful of that validation rules. And we also, out of the system also, we should put policies and procedures that ensure that the system validations, whatever given in a particular software, is in fact working on the ground. So that is very important.
And Rajesh, from your side as well, and you're into BFSI, and BFSI has seen that kind of maturity as far as data capturing is concerned. And do you feel that these data quality or the digital things that you have implemented has helped you take better decisions on the financial aspects of managing the company?
Hi, morning all. I think it's a very pertinent point. I think if you look at data, and we use this word very frequently, democratization of data, IT stack. But if you look at it, all of us would have tried to open a Demat account, say 10 years back. It used to take 3 days, 4 visits by this. I opened a Demat account day before yesterday. It took me 2 hours to get the Demat number. So, and this was completely done with Aadhaar OTP and DigiLocker, for example. So, availability of data is very good, and as someone said, it has been democratized to a great extent. You are a big company, you are a small company, everyone has got equal access to data. Now that's where the responsibility comes in, and especially for BFSI guys, we hold a lot of third-party data. A lot of our data are held by banks, financial institutions, KYC, and sometimes you step back and it's worrisome also. So not only data helps in decision making, I'll just come to that, but data availability in the hands of institutions is a responsibility, and it has to be handled very carefully. There is no chance of a data leak, as if to put it very simply. Now, in terms of usage of data, I think one thing which is very commonly seen is that we feel that data can help certain decision making, but we have seen that data can even help. I will give you 2 live examples, and probably it will help you. We are able to assess very well with the help of third-party data, not bureau data, of what will be the delinquency in a new location we go into, and these are tier 5 locations in India. These are really interior locations in India. We are able to assess with third-party data, with Bharat Bill Pay, whatever database that we use, our analytics team is able. Now this becomes a source for us to decide whether to enter that location or not. So these, we also have ability to assess regarding attrition of frontline employees using analytics. Now these are very important tools which help us to run businesses, and not only run in very quotes the finance function or the reporting function. This really helps in a lot of business and risk management, which is very vital in our organizations.
Certainly. And Mr. Samasivan, in fact, I had a question for you there, is because what Rajesh mentioned is about taking better business decisions also. And he has mentioned that it goes beyond, of course, just the business to other functions. We have spoken about data quality being so critical, the two gentlemen and Tanushree have mentioned here. And what you were mentioning once about Gen AI and ML strategies helping you take better decisions. And do you think that can really improve the kind of data quality we have, or is it dependent on data quality?
It's a very interesting question. First of all, thank you very much for being part of this panel. So today is the first of the month. Initially I was informing that I may not be able to join because it's the first of the month, right? But the fact that so many people are sitting in the first of the month and are able to spare the time says that there's a lot of automation happening in all your functions, which is why you are able to free yourself up. I don't think 20 years back on the first of the month you call for such meeting, and I don't think so many CFOs will be coming and attending the meeting. So that's one good development. Coming to your specific question on AI and Gen AI, we have actually in Tata Play used AI more in the operational side, particularly in supply chain, in financial analytics. We have used AI in a big way, where it definitely improves, for example, in procurement. You normally get a recommendation of certain suppliers, let us say, from a particular function. And say that, okay, these are the 2 vendors you can look at, and then the procurement team gets that. And also based on the technical specifications, we have a, what you can say, web scraping kind of a tool, which identifies, which has got a list of say around 50,000, 60,000 list which is there. It identifies who are the best in class for supplying that particular item, let us say. So which is over and above what is recommended. So then we go for an e-bidding, and sometimes we find that the people who has not been recommended, in fact maybe because it's not known to the concerned functions, are coming on top as L1, and they get the order and they deliver good service. So but for this web scraping, I don't think I would have got that L1 rate, because I would not have even known the existence of such a supplier. We normally go for what is recommended, and you go for those 2-3 people which we normally go to. So this is one. And it keeps on, and we keep on improving that list. Initially it was with 20,000, then 30,000, 40,000, 50,000. Now you want to go to 1 lakh kind of thing. So as you increase the population of this thing, the chances of getting a best quote increases for us. So that's one straight use case. Second is on logistics. When you are moving materials from one place to another, we have a lot of trucks movements because our set-top boxes are to be made available everywhere. Remotes have to be made available everywhere. Suppose if your remote fails in your house, say in a remote village in Bihar, we promise that we will replace the remote within 4 hours. If that kind of a promise has to be implemented, so your logistics has to be really shipshape. And you cannot have extra stock also in places. Then you are then wasting working capital. So how to optimize? So how to move that, and again how to optimize travel costs? There's a lot of tools which are available and which we keep on improving, and it has actually reduced our cost by nearly, I would say, over the last 5 years. The unit rate or the cost per ton has come down drastically, I would say. But for those tools, we would not know at the individual level if there are some 200 trucks which are moving. I would not know how am I doing FTL. FTL means full truck load or half truck load. Can I use a different milk route instead of this route? All those things, humanly it is impossible to do the route planning by a person sitting at the warehouse. It's not possible. So we also do demand planning using AI. So a lot of use cases are there. Anyway, I have taken more time.
In fact, interestingly, that's what we were also talking about initially when we started this session, was that role has evolved for a CFO, is that you are now talking about supply chain management, you are talking about how to do inventory management, and all these are aspects which have, in fact, are beyond the traditional training of a CFO, and it really gets typically very difficult, and that is probably someone like Data Champs comes in to help out Ashutosh, to help out the CFOs, and you've heard out all the CFOs, and what is your take on the kind of evolution CFOs have taken, and how much have they become technically mature in handling these transformations through data?
So thanks a lot first of all, and hi everyone. I'll first of all summarize a couple of points. CFO, largely being a custodian of numbers for the organization, is in the best position, I would say, to actually own the strategic analytics team. And we are also seeing this, right? I think almost, most of the panel here is leading the CFO function and also, in charge of the tech /IT teams. So that's part one. Coming to leveraging automation or probably AI, etc. Of course, I mean, according to us, the road to AI actually goes through automation as a very critical step. And when we talk about automation, adding to the point that Tanushree made and the other fellow panelists also made, is it's very critical to have an understanding of the architecture that you want to lay down, which is very customized, to your organization. And whatever said and done, I think, it can't be just a one ERP game anymore. You have multiple subsidiaries. They are in different countries. Even a same company can have multiple business models, and it's very, very likely that you can actually have a, very industry-focused SaaS solution available, and which can very well serve as an ERP. Now, imagine data coming in from this, custom-built ERP, along with maybe that you have this SaaS one, and apart from that, you have all these operations data kind of coming in. So, get the definitions right at the source level first. B, get the data cleaning and the data transformation layers sorted out better. And then C, come into data modeling, and finally, the dashboard reporting and analytics ultimately to come in. I think over the last 6-8 years, what has also happened is there has actually been a good amount of democratization and affordability, I would say, of tech. What I mean to say is, talk about cleaning. You have generative AI now actually, I mean, you can actually use the case and start using it from a data cleaning perspective. Talk about masters with, different definitions. I mean, put a, I mean, I'll take a little bit of a deeper example here. We were building a management report for a company more on their production effectiveness, basically utilization of the plant, and wherever there have been disruptions, people are actually giving their comments in terms of why the disruption occurred. And it was a large data set. What we wanted to do was translate that entire qualitative piece of information into a quantitative piece, which ultimately can help boost the utilization. Now, you put that large data set and what you are getting is, all those qualitative comments actually getting translated into certain categories fairly easily. Now, what you can do is convert that into an API and ultimately have, all of your data cleaned up and being, utilized from your reporting perspective going forward. Similarly, you have quite a lot of low-code, no-code tools available like Power Automate or Selenium, etc., right? Fairly easy to deploy and sort out these use cases. So I would definitely put my highlights here on using some of the new age tools that are actually available and hit the ground running instead of, actually being into a discussion mode into it. And secondly, we as finance professionals have been still a little bit away. If you see most of the surveys and the results of those surveys, the CFO teams, or I would say the finance team, despite being the early adopters via ERPs, on the new tech side, they have still been lagging a bit. What I would suggest here or recommend here is actually the entire automation and analytics, as an initiative needs an existence and a focus of its own. It can be a special business function probably or a special team, under the CFO's team largely. Because neither the finance team, which is generally, or accounts team, generally caught up on the compliance side quite heavily, or maybe audits and all of that fairly heavily, and nor the tech team, probably because there is still some gap on the business understanding side, can fully take this over. So a very dedicated capacity building on this part is something that is very required.
And this is actually a very important decision which you mentioned, whether there should be one team which does an organization-wide management of data, or should it be housed in separate departments, because for a more varied kind of business, each business will have its own unique requirement, which the other, probably the consolidated team may not be able to understand. And Om Prakash, we were discussing this, that business does not understand tech, and tech does not understand business. So what is the model would you recommend there?
Hello. For any implementation, this I can say with my own experience, it's very imperative that any kind of tech implementations, we have a tech people, we have IT people, we have implementation partners, and we have the user department, whether it is finance, production, purchase, whatever. There should be someone analytics, whether from tech side or someone in finance who understands the things better, to bridge this gap, so that there is no surprise at the end. So there should be someone properly trained, whether inside or outside the organization. So this should be taken care at the time of implementation. As our company, we sometimes, depending on the need and kind of implementation, sometimes we hire consultants who are doing this kind of job. And if something is available internally, also we promote them to do this, bridging this gap, so that implementation time there is no surprises. And every stage we put a quality audit, so that the expectation is, properly documented and it's done properly.
Thanks. Tanushri, your thoughts?
So, Vipul, analytics has very different implications depending on the business model, right? A B2B A manufacturing setup requires a different set of analytics. A B2B trading organization requires a different set of analytics. A B2C company requires a different set of analytics, right? So I don't think there's a one shape fits all sort of an answer. I have seen different models in my career, right? So in a manufacturing entity, it may make sense to have, and let me just talk about my experience. In my first manufacturing entity, the analytics team reported into me, right? And we did everything from manufacturing analytics, what we were talking about on the production system. So we'd actually partnered with a company that had that could give us real-time data on the machines that were going live, because change time was a important benchmark for us. The more the machines were lower, the more production we lost, right? And how much a changeover took time also made a lot of difference to our production. So that reported into the finance team. Then I moved to a startup, which was India's largest B2B e-commerce platform. There, not only were we serving the food industry, the lifestyle industry, the pharma industry, we also had a fintech. There you couldn't have a centralized analytics piece. So we had analytics embedded with every business on its own, and that then worked very closely with the FP&A teams, right? Because then our FP&A became more of an analytics sort of collator to be able to give us the business insights that were needed. And in our current setup, what we've realized is that on analytics, we've created a center of excellence, which then reports into the head of strategy and business development, because that's the need of our business here. So I think different shapes are available, and it has to depend on the business model, the maturity of the organization, and thirdly, how much can the organization actually invest both in people and the infrastructure of analytics?
Do you think it's a trade-off between having data consistency and quality versus agility?
I think there is no trade-off, Vipul. Data consistency and quality today is basic hygiene that is a must-have, okay? I mean, I don't think anybody sitting in this room is going to even question that. I think agility then becomes a factor of the infrastructure that you have, the type of people you have, the type of training you give to your people, how up-to-date are your systems, and then how well have you planned your journey. And I'll give you a very, very small example on agility. Most of us CFOs today will do transactions online. I don't think any of us are now signing papers to approve transactions, right? Trust me, in one of my organizations, I had to do that. And that's where, I was confounded when I told the team, why can't we have a host-to-host linkage with every bank? And there the agility that comes from is training the team, sensitizing the team. Do they also know about these options that are available? It's not just finance, it's also IT, it's also the larger system that is there.
Rajesh, being in financial services, of course, that's as you had mentioned, it's a sensitive kind of domain where democratization of data, as you mentioned, could be a challenge. And if you are talking about a team in every business unit, that could be a challenge of data security and maintaining consistency, versus if it is together, there could be a challenge of agility, as we were discussing. From a BFSI perspective, what's your thought on this?
I think all of us have been into business review meetings where the FP&A team puts up a chart and it's not very nice. And the first thing the business team says is, "Sab galat hai. Ye data galat hai." All of us have been into that. I think the one thing, as Tanushri says, which is a given, is data is correct. Data resides in a common pot, common lake, common whatever you want to call it, warehouse. And you draw reports from that. So I think one thing which is very important is when this data comes out or anything comes out of that, that lake or warehouse, it is considered to be truthful, or this is the data. Now it helps it, because otherwise, as you correctly said, if you have 5 analytics guys sitting in 5 different departments, you will have 5 reports at the end of the day. Let's be very honest. So it's a single report, and that report can always, what we have done is, we ask every department to give their own requirements in terms of the reports that they want, and at the fly of or the push of a button, you get those reports daily, monthly, weekly, whenever you want. Beyond the first 3 months, questioning of the data has stopped. So I think that is very important. Once the questioning stops, the decision making becomes that much more swifter, and to a certain extent, there's a lot of confidence at the decision maker's level that the data is correct. That's important.
That's important. I think there has to be a single source of truth, and that is, I think, what you're referring to. And Mr. Sambasivan, you were nodding vigorously, and I think you completely agree with that.
Yeah, so I was doing a project called CDR project in 2017. CDR is not corporate debt restructuring. Not that CDR. We called it CDR because it was Central Data Repository. So it was a 3-year project, which was 2017 to 2020. This was pre-COVID. So we said that, yes, the same problems what Rajesh mentioned was there. So we said that everything will be put in one place. It took us time to put all the data in one place. But the owner is FP&A. What goes in is actually owned by FP&A. So they are the kind of gatekeepers. And once it is there, then anybody can take anything from that report, and they can do their massaging, they can do their analytics, they can do their own Tableau reports, Power BI reports, and all those things from the data lake. So that's the way it is. So after that, last 5 years, we are not questioning any data, anything. Now, in fact, yesterday we had a meeting with our MD. So normally we have this monthly review on the 14th, 15th, where the entire leadership team assembles and he goes through all the numbers, operational data, everything for a full day. So we were discussing, actually thinking of advancing it, because we were doing some automation projects. I'll not get into the details. Then he saw all the automation projects. He says, after this, can I get my fact book, which is called the monthly review, on the 3rd? He said, we were internally discussing about 5th, actually. When I told my guys, when we were thinking of all these things, by January, we were saying that by 5th of January, we should have this, instead of 14th of every month. His now expectation after seeing those projects, he said, why can't you do it on 3rd? So now I have told my guys, you have to now work on 2 days improvement. So 3rd, if you are doing everything and all the full leadership team with all the operational data is all completed, imagine the remaining 27 days. Yeah, sorry, it took a longer time.
No, absolutely fine. And I think I sense a theme here as far as this structure is concerned, is that there has to be one data lake, but there has to be one custodian as well. And in between, there could be several people can do this. Yashpal, your thoughts, because have you implemented a similar structure in your organization?
Yeah, Vipul, because the data has to be centralized in terms of maintaining the data, in terms of creating the masters. There should be a common pool of data. Whosoever wants to extract, they can extract. Even if I take example of some of my past organization, even in the present also, we have standardized some of the key reports also for all vertical heads also, for all business teams also, to be presented to the senior management, so that there is no inconsistency in the figures they have been reported on. At their division vertical level, they can do whatever the analytics they want to do. They can have multiple reports, but for presentation purposes, I mean, going to the senior management, we have standardized it also. So there is it's very important that we have a common pool of data which is been controlled from a central team, and they takes care of even, managing the data also, and progressively improving the data management system also.
So we are seeing, of course, you have implemented the same, and just a thought comes to my mind is that we are talking about reports, various kind of reports. From 14th, we are moving on to a review which is happening on 5th, then on 3rd. I don't know how real time it will become now. Are we getting too data obsessed rather than being data driven? Any thoughts, maybe Ashutosh, with your experience?
No, I think
I can answer, but this is something which we have been discussing internally. We have to be very clear, because there's data overload. So we have to be clear as to what data we should not look. That's something which we have to look at, because data obsession comes when you see everything which is coming as data. Just because it is there, I don't have to see it. So we have a 3-way filter, right? So whenever any slide comes in, we ask 3 questions. What is the data saying? The construct of the data, what is the objective of the data, and why is it coming out with some insight? Then you present it to me. And third thing is, what next, meaning so what? So if there is no so what question which is answered by that slide, don't even show it to me. That is not irrelevant for me. I am not here for general knowledge, right? So we go with this filter saying that what, why, so what. If you answer that question, then you filter the data then and there. 90% of the data gets filtered because there is no so what getting answered by that slide. Just for knowledge, you don't want to see, right? Isse kya matlab? What do we do with this? What's in it for me by seeing the data? If you ask that question for every slide, you will find 90% of the slides are not required.
So, Vipul, I'll give two responses to your question. One is just building on what was just said, right? We actually have started saying that all information that is required for context setting needs to be given in pre-reads. And it's only the decision-making data that comes to meetings, because if you're starting to share information in the meetings, then you're wasting time. But you know, in the beginning, we spoke about investor interaction. And I think as CFOs of listed entities, that's something where I think data obsession, it can become very real time. You're constantly looking at, you've got to peer benchmark, all of that's okay. I think there was a conversation I once had where I was told that, listen, but this is how your competitor is communicating. These are the data points that your competitor is giving out. And, you know, then it's not just benchmarking, then you're just getting obsessed with data. And I think that's where messaging got lost. Because then we started to say, okay, if peers are doing this, should we also start doing the same thing? And I think at some point in time, in that particular case, we lost track of what our own business was and what did we want to really talk about, right? So I do believe that there can be this data obsession, and it's not actually data, it's information overload. I think, and that can cause derailing, and we need to definitely be mindful of that.
I think I'd just like to add 2 points. There must be prioritization of certain KPIs and the periodicity or maybe real-time nature of that. So what you can have is, okay, this is what is being monitored weekly and probably needs to be real-time. This is what is being monitored maybe monthly or quarterly, and accordingly, you know, the data for that is being collated, processed, and maybe depicted, part 1. And part 2, of course, the most critical here is to navigate through information overload is exceptions and the analysis of those exceptions. So in most of the reports that we are delivering, what is becoming most and most more and more prominent is what exceptions are we delivering, and not necessarily only to the a person who's at the helm of affairs, in case here, you know, the CFO, but maybe to the specific people in the hierarchy, which means that, you know, if there are the deputies who have to actually decide based on that exception and act upon it, then let it get delivered to, you know, those people. So it's not about overloading information from your analytics to a specific person, but distributing it to the right, you know, people in the entire chain.
This aspect of information or insights or analytics percolating down to the hierarchy, it's actually a very, I think, a pertinent point here, because if you have to undertake transformation, especially through data, you need a certain extent of democratization. But in your respective organizations, everyone, do you feel that it is still restricted to just the boardroom or to the C-suite? It has gone to the middle management, the people who actually implement those projects, implement those decisions, or has it really percolated to the last person in the hierarchy?
So I'll have a stab at that. I think, actually, I dare say that the reverse is true. In the sense, the young guys, the middle management are faster absorbers of data. Faster, if you make it data available to them, they will make their own analytical models and they can throw surprises at you. It's actually the top, and when I'm saying beyond us. When you look at the boards, when you look at the committees of the boards, that's where the idea of data-driven decision making and data driving a lot of decision making is sometimes misunderstood and late in understanding. So in that sense, I would dare say the middle management.
Can you expand on that? You mentioned.
Let's accept it that when we come up and tell that you need to have data driving every decision making, for example, in an organization, and take it to the board and say that we will no longer have human taking decisions, probably the data or the models will take decision. Is an example credit underwriting, for example. And if you have an experienced person in the board who has spent 20, 30 years in the industry, he'll come in and say that, but where is the human touch? So that's where we always feel that the human, beyond a point, is going to be better off than data, which is fine. 90% work can be done by the machine stroke, the models, and 10% can be left to the human intervention. That's where the tone at the top, understanding. So we had a 3-day workshop for the board on data analytics. So basically to make them aware of the latest what is available in the markets, how are we going to use it? And then it sort of percolated downward and a meeting point somewhere in the middle. So I think that is very, 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 very pertinent.
That's good.
So Vipul, I have had a very different experience, right? I think when we are talking about is it top down or is it bottoms up and where does it get stuck? And I think I totally agree with Rajesh when he says that the younger lot can really surprise us because they're really fast adopters. So I think in our case, what has happened is when we have started on journeys, data and data-driven decision making has been percolated down because at the end of the day, the understanding is that the actions are going to be driven at the bottom level. So if we don't percolate it down, then, you know, we are just building an ivory tower without really preparing for that ivory tower to take form. I think the challenge really comes in is you'll share the data. One is, do they understand the data? So, you know, explaining that data. And I think that in a digital transformation, the second challenge that comes in, so this is slightly different from data and sharing data, but in a digital transformation is, and I face this at different levels, and I'll share one experience, is when the person feels threatened of their own job. So I remember in one of my roles, we had digitized an app which could, sitting with the customer, you could actually, in that app, fill in what was the fault with, if there was a quality complaint or a fault that the customer wanted to report, what you wanted to report, how they wanted to report, and it would real time get transmitted to the people. Our sales heads, regional sales heads, were not ready to deploy that app. And every time I asked them why, they said, "Mera phone slow ho jata hai." And I remember I was traveling to Delhi the next day, and I said, "ठीक है, तो कल मैं आ रही हूँ, अब आपके फ़ोन पे देखेंगे स्लो क्यों हो जाता है, अगर हो जाता है we'll get you a new phone from the organization." And of course within 10 minutes the app was downloaded and it was being used. And then when I sat down with this gentleman, I think his apprehension was that when you digitize something and now this data is available for everybody to see, am I going to get exposed? And how is it going to impact me? And I think that was a huge learning for me to understand that when we democratize data and data is available to everybody, we lose the aspect that there are certain very well-meaning people who are not, who feel insecure, rightly or wrongly, but we've got to be able to address those concerns, and then the adoption is going to be much faster.
So, one final word, anything, Ashutosh? Because
So I am just seconding that point actually. The whole digital transformation and analytics, or even probably adoption of AI as a journey, does need, very important and good amount of long-term planning, number one. Number two, the communication, to the stakeholders, and it's really the, bottom layer actually, which is both, not just the executor of that entire task, but at the same time also going to be using, that information. They need to be communicated extremely well about the impact of this adoption on their jobs. Actually, those are the people who are, always going to be required because of their deeper understanding of the business. So this message has to be percolated very well. And at the same time, I mean, we, being on the solution providing side, actually, get bombarded all the time from young professionals particularly in that 3 to 5 year experience zone. They are the ones who are actually aspiring, to adopt tech, do their job differently, also probably have some more time available to them, So I think as an organization, this lot can actually be very well leveraged, to hone and ultimately evolve into this specific team, which is actually, focused on digital transformation and analytics. And lastly, of course, about training. So, finance as a domain, of course, you have business understanding, you have, understanding of numbers. But the third pillar, which is getting more and more critical, which needs to be added. So we, no longer need to be ignorant about maybe Python as a tool or maybe, SQL or Power BI as a tool. And there needs to be, specific focused trainings, at least from a basic working knowledge building point of view, just to decide, which tool probably is better for me or which approach, to this solution is better for me, as a custodian of this entire initiative. So training, communication, and long-term planning.
Definitely, and you have added communication as one of the other things which CFOs now need to do. And I think it has been a very enlightening conversation on implementing data-driven transformations in the organization. From a summing up, I think all of us agree that the foundation needs to be correct. That ensures that kind of data consistency, and there has to be a data custodian which ensures that everything is tied in together. In between that, there has to be democratization as much as possible, of course, taking care of the data security and compliance aspects, but important to get everyone on board the journey in a proper way through training, through ensuring that there are no errors in inputs which can really mess up the reports, and also to overcome their own insecurities. And with lack of training, with the lack of understanding of what the vision is, there are insecurities that are definitely there. There are challenges to be surmounted, but what CFOs also need to communicate is the overall eventual impact of that data-driven transformation which they are undertaking. And there has to be two balances. One is a balance between how much you trust AI or ML to throw up the insights and decisions, and how much should be the human intervention, like Rajesh you were mentioning, and whether how much data obsessed or how much is the information overload that is happening. And these are, I think, very unique to every organizations. We can talk about it as a summary points. We can talk about it in this discussion, but we all of us have to go back, see what's best for our organizations, and including trusting the younger lot more. Because they are the ones who would probably drive data-driven transformation more than the ones in the boardroom. So that's the leadership which people now expect from the CFOs. Thank you, panelists, for sharing your views, and thank you, audience, for the patient hearing. Thank you.